Once upon a time in the bustling metropolis of Manhattan, there lived a self-made billionaire, Edward Carter. He was a man who had everything: a grand penthouse, a successful financial empire, and an unshakable belief in his own superiority. He moved through the city's elite social circles with an air of effortless arrogance, viewing the world as his personal playground. One night, at one of his lavish cocktail parties, his longtime rival, Marcus Whitman, cornered him. "You're too predictable, Edward," Marcus said with a mischievous glint in his eye. "You've built an empire, but you've also built walls so high that no one can surprise you anymore. Don't you ever crave a challenge?" Intrigued, Edward took the bait. "What kind of challenge?" he asked. Marcus' smirk widened. "I'll bet you," he began, "to marry someone who's the complete opposite of your type. Someone who doesn't fit your mold, who comes from a completely different world, and you have to stay married for 6 months." The bet was absurd, but the competitive fire in Edward's belly ignited. He saw it as a game, another opportunity to prove his dominance. "You're on," he said, sealing a deal that would change his life forever. Edward's team quickly found her, Amara James, a 36-year-old social worker with a curvy figure and a fiery reputation for her unwavering commitment to her non-profit organization, Rise Up, which helped underserved communities. Amara was everything Edward was not: compassionate, humble, and fiercely independent. Edward arranged a meeting, framing the marriage proposal as a mutually beneficial arrangement. He would provide the funding her non-profit desperately needed, and she would help improve his public image. Amara, though deeply skeptical, saw the opportunity to save her organization and, with a heavy heart, agreed, but not without laying down her own conditions. She would not be a trophy wife, and she would walk away the moment her values were compromised. The wedding was a swift, impersonal affair. Amara felt like a prop in Edward's elaborate chess game, a feeling that only intensified as she moved into his sprawling, emotionless penthouse. She unpacked her belongings in the guest room, a clear signal that this marriage was nothing more than a business deal. In the weeks that followed, Amara's defiance became a constant source of frustration for Edward. She refused his lavish gifts and invitations to society events, choosing instead to pour her heart and soul into her work. Her quiet strength and unwavering sense of self was a challenge he hadn't anticipated. The game he had so confidently embraced was beginning to feel far more complicated. One day, Amara insisted he accompany her to a community event at Rise Up. Edward, a man whose world was built on profit margins and power plays, was completely out of his element. He walked through the bustling community center, a stark contrast to his pristine penthouse, and was immediately struck by the raw, unfiltered humanity of the place. He met single mothers, teenagers hoping for a better future, and elderly residents grateful for a place to feel safe. Amara moved through it all with a magnetic purpose, her energy a stark contrast to his hollow, corporate existence. That night, alone in his penthouse, the glittering city lights looked hollow. The faces he had seen at Rise Up lingered in his mind, forcing him to confront a truth he had spent his life avoiding. He had never cared about anyone outside his carefully curated circle, and for the first time, he felt uncertain. When Amara arrived home, he admitted, today was different. "It's not the kind of environment I'm used to." "Maybe that's the problem," she shot back, her tone cutting but not unkind. "You've built your entire life in a bubble." Her words stung, but he couldn't deny their truth. He began spending more time at Rise Up, not as a benefactor, but as a volunteer. He worked alongside the community, listening to their stories and learning to see the world beyond his ivory tower. He started to question his own values, the worth of his achievements, and the hollowness of his own life. This transformation was not easy. Edward's presence at the center was met with skepticism, and he still tried to assert his control, leading to explosive arguments with Amara. But slowly, he began to change. He admitted his mistakes, apologized for his arrogance, and started to see Amara not as a challenge to conquer, but as the kind of person he wanted to become. He began to implement ethical changes in his corporate life, pushing for policies that prioritized people over profit. And for the first time, he wasn't living for the approval of his peers. As the 6-month mark loomed, the weight of his deception grew heavier. He knew he couldn't keep lying to Amara. One evening, he confessed the truth. Their marriage was a bet. Amara's heart broke, and she unleashed a torrent of pain and betrayal. "You didn't just lie to me," she said, her voice raw with hurt. "You used me. You took something as personal as marriage, and you turned it into a stunt." With that, she walked out, leaving Edward alone in the silent, empty penthouse. The days that followed were the loneliest he had ever experienced. The luxury of his life felt meaningless, and the projects that once fueled his ambition felt shallow and insignificant. He threw himself into his work, not for recognition, but to atone for his actions. He donated millions to rise up, not to win back Amara, but because he truly believed in her mission. He started re-evaluating his entire business, implementing policies that prioritized ethics over profit. Months passed. Amara buried herself in her work, expanding Rise Up and making a real difference in the community. She saw Edward's transformation from afar, but the wound of his betrayal was not easily healed. One autumn evening, she stood at the grand opening of Rise Up's newest center when she saw him. Edward, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, looked nervous. He approached her and handed her a handwritten letter. It wasn't an apology, not exactly. It was an admission of his flaws, a testament to how she had changed him, and a promise that he would spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of her. Amara read the letter, her emotions a tangled mess of anger, sadness, and something she couldn't quite name. She wasn't ready to forgive him, not completely, but she saw that his change was genuine. She saw that his journey wasn't about earning her forgiveness, but about becoming the kind of man who could look in the mirror and be proud of what he saw. Over the following weeks, Edward continued to support Rise Up from a distance, respecting Amara's boundaries. Slowly, she began to see the depth of his transformation. One afternoon, as they worked side by side at a food drive, she broke the silence. "You've changed, Edward," she said. "I had to," he replied, his expression earnest. "Because this isn't just about you, Amara. It's about being the kind of man I can live with." A small smile played at her lips. "We'll see," she said. Months later, they stood together at another Rise Up event, partners not in business, but in something new and unspoken. Their journey had been messy and painful, but it had brought them to a place of mutual respect and understanding. As the sun set over the city, Edward turned to Amara. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked. "For giving me a chance to change," he said. "For showing me that it's never too late to start over." Amara smiled, the warmth in her eyes finally reaching him. "Just don't waste it, Edward." "I won't," he promised. And for the first time, they stood not as adversaries or strangers, but as equals, ready to face whatever came next together.